So
Yeah.
I think for those of us who have never functioned in politics, how does one get into politics? What is that roadmap?
The first question is, what do you actually stand for yourself?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just doing it to be at the podium,
Yeah.
to enjoy it, and so forth.
Yeah.
And that is called populism. It
Yeah.
means you're doing it for the
And there's a lot of that
reasons.
around.
You're
Yeah.
doing it because you like the sound of your own voice.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of politicians
Yeah.
out there. You have to have a sense of purpose of what you
Yeah.
believe in, and then work out where you fit in the political spectrum. And just the way British politics works is that you need to join a party because they're the vehicles that help you and support you all the way. And there is an overlap, as there is between the Republicans and Democrats, probably less so now, but certainly in the past, whereby you could be a right-leaning Democrat or a left-leaning slightly Republican, and there'll be that middle ground. Likewise in British politics as well.
Yeah.
So I'm a light blue conservative, if you like. So I
Okay.
believe in responsibility, opportunity, and indeed.
I'd like to go into greater detail when we get into that. But let's maybe start off. I'm a little familiar. I wouldn't say super familiar. Let's talk a little bit. So for those of you, for those listeners who don't understand the British political system, actually, your political system is a two-party system.
Well, it was, but there's more space for other parties to engage.
Okay.
Unlike your system, where it's very rigid indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very rigid.
Yeah. It's either one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in the British system, you have a third party. In fact, the original two parties, like the Republicans, Democrats, were the Tory party, now the Conservatives, and what was called the Whig party, which is now the Liberals.
Yeah.
The Whig party.
Are they called Labour now, or?
No, that's an interesting thing. The Labour movement started in the early 1900s and developed from the working class.
Okay.
They wanted representation. So through the unions and so on, they grew up and eventually overtook the Whigs. So it then became Labour versus Conservative.
And you have a third party now, you said as well?
So the third party is now the Liberal Democrats, but we now have other parties. The Green Party is now making a little bit of headroom.
Yeah.
And the other party that's doing very well is Reform. And they are much further to the right, led by one Nigel Farage.
Ah, okay.
And, who will not stop to tell you too often that he's friends with Donald Trump. His best muckers, frequently visiting Mar-a-Lago and so forth. So it's a curious place we are now because we have something called the first past the post system. So in my jolly seat of Bournemouth, I was lucky to get over 50% of all voters going into the booth. That's great. But
I think 54.
Also win if I had only 35%, but a lot more than anybody else. So you can actually win, even though you've only got just over a third of the voters there. So the system is outdated a little bit. It does need to change.